Okay, everybody, I think I'm going to go ahead and get started. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Wonderful, thank you. Before we start class, I would like to know if anyone has any specific things that they would like me to cover today. Aside from what I told you I'm going to cover in the Skype message. So no questions right now.
Right. No.
Okie doke. Well, then we will get started. So what we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk about a few things that are specific to Dragon Naturally Speaking that will help to increase your accuracy, and also some things that are specific to Transcriptionist that will help to get your correction done faster, and it will also help to improve the accuracy with which your text lays down. So I'm going to start with Dragon. It's very important as you are doing your real-time coach dictations, it's important that you do a little bit of correction mechanism on those dictations so that you can become more and more accurate. And we're going to review correction in just a minute. And after we do correction, we are going to want to do this exporting of your Dragon user profile again, but I'm going to start with that today because it's very important that you do start exporting your Dragon profile on a regular basis. So my Dragon bar is up at the top of my screen, and I'm going to go to Profile, Manage User Profiles. And that is going to bring up all of my specific profiles. And what I want to do is export them so that if they become corrupted, I can just import them back in and be ready to get up and go without any delay. So I'm going to click on Advanced. I'm going to click on the user profile that I would like to export. Then I will click on Advanced and Export. And it's going to come up and give me a dialog allowing me to choose where I want to put this export. And so what I'm going to do is click on my name, and then I'm going to go to Documents. And in Documents, I want to make a new folder. So I'm going to click on Make a New Folder. And I'm going to type in DNS for Dragon Naturally Speaking, User Exports. And then I'm just going to hit Enter twice, and it'll go ahead and start the export of that user. These happen very quickly. So I'll click on OK, and now I'm going to click on my second user profile, and I will click on Advanced and Export. And it'll automatically go to the same place I used before. So all I have to do is click on OK. It'll export that user profile. It comes up and says, okay, that completed successfully. So I'll click on OK. I'll go to my next user profile, Advanced, Export, same location, OK. And OK. Now my last user profile, Advanced, Export, okay. And so all of my profiles are now exported, and if I want to see them on my hard drive, I can right click on the Windows button and click on File Explorer, and then I will go to Documents, and there's my DNS user exports, and if I double click on it, it'll show me all of the profiles that I've exported to my Documents folder. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to import one of my user profiles, my mask user profile, which is the one that I use most commonly. And I'm going to click on Advanced and Import. I'm going to go back to DNS user exports, and I'm going to select my mask user, and I'm going to click on OK. It's going to come up and tell me, wait a minute, you've already got one like that. Do you want to override it? And actually, no, I want to import the user profile with an alternate name. And all I do is add to that exact same name the word backup in all caps, and I hit OK. And why do I do this? I do this because if something happens to my user profile and I don't necessarily have time to go and import a previous one, I can just switch to my backup and keep on going. So now you see that I have my primary user profile and a backup of that exact user profile as it exists today, right now. The changes that I make from here on out will not be in that backup user, only in the primary user. So if I wanted to create a new backup, I would just go to Advanced and Import and overwrite my backup to create a new backup. So these are just options that you have for keeping your user profile safe and uncorrupted. So I'm going to go ahead and close. And the one other thing that I want to do before we move on to correction is I want to run a tool in Dragon called Learn from Specific Documents. So I'm going to go to Vocabulary, and I'm going to click on Learn from Specific Documents. And it's going to come up and say, okay, so do you want to find new words, and do you want to adapt to the writing style? I want to do both. So I'm going to put a check, or rather leave the check in both of those boxes. I'm going to click on Next, and then I'm going to click on Add Folder. And I believe that some of you may have on your flash drive, you may have documents that are specifically for you guys in Trinidad and Tobago. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to C, and then I'm going to go to Topic Files. And here I've got some what we call cleaned up texts that I can use. So I'm going to just select General Litigation, click on OK, and I'm going to go back to Add Folder, and I'm going to return to Topic Files on C, and I will do Miscellaneous Deposition, and I'll do OK, and then I'm going to click on Next. And what Dragon does is it reads through these documents, and it's going to find all of the words that are not currently in my Dragon vocabulary. And it's going to present those unknown words to me so that I can have the option to add them or not add them. It's also learning from the context of these text files. So it's learning what words are most likely to come before and after what words. And this is really important. And so it's going to be very beneficial for you to do this once you start working with actual transcripts from Trinidad and Tobago. This is when it will be the most helpful to you. Now, the ones that we have placed on your computers for you under Topic Files are perfectly fine for you to use. But as you start working, the ones that you dictate will become the best ones to do learn from specific documents on. It's almost done. Okay, so now it's done. I'm going to click on Next. And now I can go through all of these words and decide if any of them need to be added to my Dragon dictionary. And as I look through these words, I see that there are some words that I definitely should add that are common to my area, like po' boys. It's a word for a sandwich that we make. Originally the word was poor boy, but everybody just says po' boy now. So that is very relevant to me and my area, so I want to add it. There may also be some family names that are very specific to my area that I want to add. Here's the name of a town not far from here. It's called Arnoville. And so because that is relevant to me, I'm going to check it. I would never add a stitched word or a word that is in all caps. I might add Home Savings Bank. That's a local bank. Intramilitary. That's a good word to add for me. Roughnecking is a description of a certain job that is popular here in the oil industry. Spectroanalysis is a good word to add. Okay, so I think biodynamicists would be a good word. So there, I've selected some words, and I'm gonna now click on next. And now it's gonna allow me to train these words. So I'm gonna check all, and I'm gonna click on train. I'm gonna click on train again. Then I'm gonna say all these words as they appear here. Okay, so I'm done. I'm gonna click on save. And now I'm gonna click on next. And now it's adapting my writing style, which is basically a transcript, Q&A, and colloquy. This is very important. The writing style will alone make you more accurate. And of course, when you see a word that's common to you and you add that word, that is also going to help your accuracy tremendously. It's taking a little bit longer than it normally takes, and that's only because I'm streaming in this meeting to you. Normally, this would already be completed. I just went ahead and hit cancel because I don't want to hold up the class, but that's the process, and it should take you very little time when you do it yourself. The longest time that it normally takes for me is in looking through the word list. So I'm going to go ahead and click on profile and save user profile. And now I'm going to click on profile and exit Dragon. And now I'm going to bring up Transcriptionist. Okay, I am going to go into this one here and see if it's ready for correction. And when I go into the edit phase, I make sure that there is a check in Scope Loads the Engine so that I can do correction. The engine must be loaded for correction mechanism. Okay, so to do correction, the first thing we do after the engine has loaded is we click on the A with the little pencil. And when we do that, it highlights the text where our cursor was. We hit page down. And this should be playing my audio. So I'm going to just see why I'm not hearing it. And that's why it's on the wrong, it's selected the wrong device. So I'm going to right click on my Realtek, which is my sound card, and I'm going to set as default device. And now I'm going to come over to the other side and hit start. The members of this body can take a significant step. So what I'm doing is I'm hearing my own voice, what I said, played back to me, and I am making sure that the text I'm looking at that's highlighted matches what I said exactly. I'm going to hit page down to move to the next utterance. Urban laws. And if I want to hear it again, I can hold down the Alt key and hit P as in Paul. Urban laws. This urban law. By moving as rapidly as possible to enact the Parental Kidnapping Prevention Act. Page down. There is a legitimate, as you can see, it didn't pick that up. National interest in ensuring that the custody of a human child. Control D deletes a whole word. Control D deletes an entire word, whatever word the cursor is touching. Old P to listen again.
As a human child
Page down.
is determined by a court of law and not by the force and guile of a kidnapper. The act will ensure. The act will ensure.
I believe it was will ensure.
The custody and visitation decrees will be enforceable in every state.
That custody and visitation decrees will be enforceable in every state. Page down.
And this is an essential requirement if we are to remain a society of law and not of men.
And not of men. What you're going to notice is that a lot of the little words are missing in between. And every once in a while, as you noticed earlier with the word legitimate, which I heard myself say and it did not write, that will happen every once in a while. I can't exactly tell you why, but sometimes Dragon just doesn't hear a word. Now, I want you to notice that the next text is red, which means that either a real-time rule was used at that point in the text, or I actually made a correction to that one part of that text in that utterance. So I'm going to hit page down and listen to a custodial order. How do you avoid getting the utterances turning red because you cannot correct the red writing? The way that you avoid the utterances turning red is that you remove the real-time rule or you simply ignore it. Generally, a real-time rule is created to solve a problem that you are having. So you should not have a lot of red text unless you are typing into the text at some point without doing the correction mechanism. If you type into the text but not inside this highlight while you are doing correction, it will turn the text red. If the text is turning red as you dictate, it's because there's a real-time rule that's kicking in. And I can tell you that right here, the real-time rule is probably the word president, because normally Dragon wants to abbreviate the word president to PRES period. We don't want anything abbreviated, and so we have a real-time rule that turns pres into president. And at this point, I want to just introduce you to real-time rules. So for just a minute, I'm going to turn correction off, and I'm going to go to edit, and I'm going to click on real-time rules. Now, you probably don't have as many real-time rules as I do. Right now, I'm only using my primary real-time rules. I'd like to draw your attention to the bottom of the screen. It is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The sixth block in from the left right now says main. And that's because only my main real-time rules folder is checked. If I check my numerics as well and then close this, you'll see that now it says main and numerics. And I can push that over so that it can be larger. I'm going to return to real-time rules. And I'm going to click on edit words to show you that there is the word president, P-R-E-S. This is telling Dragon, when you see P-R-E-S period, capital P-R-E-S period, please replace that with capital P-R-E-S-I-D-E-N-T. And that is in fact what has happened in this particular real-time rule. I have in the numerics folder many things, and what you'll see is that when you look at real-time rules, what's on the left is what Dragon presents to Transcriptionist, and on the right is what we want it replaced with. So I would probably change this and a half to just a half, and this would be 1/3, 1/4. You could also say 1/2, but we almost always say a half. 1/16, 1/8, 1/4. 90s, we don't want it to appear 9-0 capital S. We want it to be 9-0 little s. When we say 911, we don't want it to just write 911. We want it to write 9-1-1. And so that's the way you can tell what is in your real-time rules. You can go and look, and if there's something there that is not something that you want, then you can simply delete it, and it's not a problem at all. And that will also keep it from coming up red in your text. Real-time rules can really, really help you. And to add a real-time rule is very simple. We're going to go on with our correction and see if something comes up that I would want to make a real-time rule for, and then I'll show you how to add it. So now I'm going to return to correction. So I'm going to click back on the A with the little pencil. I'm going to hit page down to move to the next utterance. Okay, I seriously doubt that they said use in the child is kidnapped. It's use, I think it probably was if the child is kidnapped, but I hear myself saying in the child is kidnapped. And so I don't want to change that, because the point of correction is to make Dragon write what you say correctly. Dragon has no idea as to whether you said the right thing or not. It only is trying to write what it thinks you say. And so you cannot say, oh, Dragon, you weren't psychic and you didn't know that that word should be if. You can't do that. Dragon can only write what you say. So I said in, so I have to leave it that way at this point while I'm doing correction mechanism. I will be able to go and change it when I'm editing, but correction and editing in our products are considered different. Correction, you're using this, what we call the correction mechanism, which is actually teaching Dragon, whereas when you're editing, you're just making changes to what were your mistakes, not Dragon's mistakes. So now I'm going to hit page down since everything is correct. Alt P to play again. This sounds like it cut off my word, which sounded like it was going to be principal, but I didn't hear anything but print, so I'm going to leave it there. Let's say that I just want to listen to faith-breaking parent using him. So I put my cursor in front of the word faith and left-clicked to put my cursor there, and then I use the shift and right arrow keys to select it. And now I'm going to do Alt-P. I can only hear using. I can't make out that word after, so I'm not going to put anything in there. I'm going to just put using, and I'm going to hit F, page down, pardon me, to continue. I don't think that I even know what I said here, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this button to the right of the correction mode button. It's called toggle correction, and what it does is it turns this utterance red, meaning Dragon is not going to learn from this. I don't want Dragon to learn from this because I can't even make out what I said. So now I'm going to move on by page down. I'm going to do Alt-P, Control-D to delete. Page down. Okay, I'm going to stop here, and I'm going to go ahead and toggle that one to red because I was speaking out loud, not into the mask. And so now I'm going to turn correction off, and what I want is for Dragon to learn from the correction I've done. And so the first thing I need to do is make sure that my correction is absolutely perfect. So I'm going to go to what's called the utterance summary. It's going to ask me if I want to save my speech files. I'm going to say yes. And then it's going to bring up this box. And this box allows me to look at the original on the left and the corrected on the right. And this little box that has the check in it is going to tell Transcriptionist and Dragon that we do want it to learn from that utterance. So before I just click on correct, I'm going to listen to all of these to make sure that what I did was absolutely right. So the little black right-facing arrow is pointing to the first correction. I'm going to hit play. I'm going to come over to the other side and hit start. That's correct. Go to the next one. Play.
The members of this body can take a significant step.
That's correct. Play.
Toward averting.
I flubbed this one up, so I'm going to deselect this one because I don't want Dragon to learn from my mistakes.
Today, a custodial order.
Since this is not a complete thought, I don't think this is a complete word. I'm going to deselect that one. I'm concerned about that sound at the end, so I'm going to deselect that one too. I'm going to deselect this one because I seem to have repeated abductions at the beginning. Okay, so I've listened to all of them. I've deselected the ones I don't want Dragon to learn from because I made mistakes. And I've left the ones that are good checked. And now I can click on correct. And you can see at the bottom in the status bar, corrections are being applied. And now it's saying performed 18 corrections. It's asking me if I want to save my speech files. I want to say yes. And now you can see that there is black text still. That's the text that was correct originally. Blue text that Dragon has actually learned from, and green text that I corrected but was not totally pleased with the audio, my audio. And so I didn't want to confuse Dragon with any of my mistakes, so I did not choose to have these corrected. I can click on the green ones and I can toggle the correction to red. That is my way of telling myself and Transcriptionist that I won't be wanting Dragon to learn from these particular corrections here. Not now and not in the future. And so now I have actually built my recognition accuracy by doing these corrections and saving my speech files. Now, if I wanted to go ahead and edit this document for correctness, I would just listen to the audio and change what was wrong. Now, normally you're going to have the audio that you're dictating from because it's going to be acquired into your Transcriptionist application. And so you'll be able to then listen by editing and not worrying about what you said, but rather listening to the original audio that you dictated from while you're making these last edits. For instance, let's say that this word I want initial capped. So Control I will initial cap it. This actually was all just me talking. So I'm going to delete all of this and start where the audio actually starts. And the first thing I want to do is Control I to initial cap. The members of this body can take a significant step toward averting this urban law by moving as rapidly as possible to enact the, pretty sure, Parental Kidnapping Prevention Act. Now, I want a period here. If I hold down the Control key and I hit the period, then it puts in a period, it adds 2 spaces, and it capitalizes the next word. By the way, all of these hotkeys are listed here under hotkeys. So you can look at that. It's also in your hotkeys, your laminated handies should also have all of these on there for you. There is a legitimate national interest in ensuring, the parental kidnapping, for instance, the Parental Kidnapping Prevention Act, that should probably all be initial capped. So if I highlight the whole thing and I do Control I, that is going to initial cap each word in that selection. So now there is a legitimate national interest in ensuring that the custody of the human child is determined by a court of law and not by the force of guile of the kidnapper. So this is Control period here, period, space, space, cap the next. The act will ensure that custody and visitation decrees will be enforceable in every state, and this is an essential requirement if we are to remain a society of law and not of men. So here again, Control period, puts in a period, 2 spaces, and caps a next. Fortunately, Mr. President, extraterritorial validity is only part of the solution unless this committee also creates realistic mechanisms to enforce custodial degrees. And this was just a repeat on my part. And will have little impact on the child napping problem. Okay, so now Control period here. Today, a custodial order is little more than a right without remedy, even those in states that have adopted the uniform law. And we're going to initial cap uniform law. So Control I there. Oops, I made a mistake. I didn't hold down the Control key when I hit I. So now type it back in, the uniform law. Okay. Okay, and then here, Control I, because child napping is not a crime, victim parents cannot enlist the assistance of federal law enforcement officials in locating and reclaiming victim children. Control period. Instead, they must rely on private attorneys and private detectives, and their ability to enforce the basic right of custody is entirely a function of their personal financial resources. Okay, so that's Control period there. So that's going to save you strokes when you do that. So I want to introduce you to brief forms and word swaps. Word swaps can be used in correction and in editing. And basically what it is it's a way of replacing a sounds like word. So let's say that I haven't come across one yet. Okay, so let's put a semicolon here for those who cannot. The rights conferred by decrees of custody are illusory. Okay, Control period there. There are a few rights more basic than the right to the custody of a child. And we cannot tolerate a system that makes that right contingent on personal wealth. Okay, Control period. So let's look at the word to. Though it is used in its correct form here, if it were not, with my cursor either before, after it, or in the middle of the word, I would do Control. I would hold down Control and hit the Y, and it will bring up the next form of to that I have in my word swap. And you can see down here in the status bar what words are in this swap set for me. If you go to the options dialog, which is the button right beneath the word hotkeys in the hotkeys drop down, it will bring you straight to your options. And if you click on the word swap tab, you will see all of my word swaps. These are default word swaps for me. They will most likely be different for you. You would want to go through them and make sure the spellings are correct for the way you spell things. You can remove, if you go to edit, you can remove any, if you, like this has never come up for me. So let's say I wanted to delete it, I would just click on delete and it would go away. And so you can go through all of these and look at them and see if that would be a good word swap for you or not. We also have things called brief forms where we can automatically enter things that people don't normally speak, and so it's in the transcript. It needs to be in the transcript, but most people don't dictate it. And so let's say that we needed a direct examination and a cross-examination. So I'm going to go ahead and add a brief form for my direct examination by and my cross-examination by. So I generally use the first letter of every word. So if I use direct examination by, that forms the word Deb, which is a word and it is used in the US. So I don't want to use that. So I'm just going to do, let's see, direct examination. I'm going to do DXB. So I'm going to put that in all lowercase, and I want my long form to be in all caps. So I'm going to caps lock direct examination by, and I'm going to click on add. And let's say that I want a cross examination by, so I can do cross examination. Oops, I don't want that in caps. Cross examination by. So I'm going to put in caps cross examination by and hit add. And let's say I want a recross. So RCB. And in all caps, recross examination by. In my document, let's say that I wanted to add a direct examination by here. I would just do DE, oops, not in all caps, DXB, and there's my direct examination by. If I wanted that centered, I could click on it and then hit center above. And if I wanted to type in the speaker, I could do that. Mr. Jones. And then let's say that I want to add CEV, cross-examination by, and I can center that if I'd like. So that's the use of brief forms and word swaps. And I also showed you control period, and for adding a period, 2 spaces, and cap next. I showed you control I for initial capping a word. If you wanted to uppercase a word, you see my cursor on the word federal right here. If I do control U, that will uppercase the whole word, put it in all caps. Most of these are toggles. So if I do it again, control U, it'll go back to being small. Control I will make it just initial capped. There are all sorts of hotkeys that are very, very convenient. Let's say that the word misdemeanor, let's just say that that was a spelled last name. If I do control hyphen, it will put it in uppercase and hyphenate it or stitch it for me. That too is a toggle. So I hit control dash again to remove the stitching, and I can do control U to make it lowercase. There are many, many hotkeys, and I implore you to look at them and try to use them and see which ones might be helpful to you. Control question mark will enter control question mark, a question mark, 2 spaces, and cap the next. That is not a toggle. Okay. So I want you to look through the hotkeys so that you can start using them. Many of the hotkeys can be used in correction mechanism. So I encourage you to use them where you can. You will find that they will make you faster. With real-time rules, those will make you faster too. Someone was mentioning to me about the spelling of some of the words needing to be the British spelling. If you can think of an example of that, like color, the word color, you could go to edit, real-time rules, and you could do, I'm just going to do add phrase or word. So let's say that I wanted to replace the word color with the word C-O-L-O-U-R, which I think is how you guys spell it. I would just say replace color with color, and then I would click on add rule. And then when I close this, if I go to edit words, you can see that I've added color so that it changes. You can do this to your heart's content. If you make a mistake, just go into the replacements, delete it, save it on exit, and you'll be fine. Real-time rules will really benefit you a great deal. I also want to tell you about untrans. I may have told you this before, but it's worth repeating. You have all, if you set up your users correctly, you have added the untrans at least 1 through 10 to your Dragon vocabulary. And I'm going to pop into the vocabulary right now to show you. If we're in the vocabulary editor and you go to the bottom where it says display, you click on that drop down and you say custom words only. That is going to bring up only the words that you have added. Now I've got a bunch of stuff in my vocabulary that you may not have, but you should definitely have your untrans at least 1 through 10, and they should look like this. So it should be asterisk, untran, the numeric 1, asterisk, and in the spoken form, tran 1. And so what that does is, let's say that they were going to say FPLS in this particular dictation several times. And as you saw earlier, it wrote FPL as instead of FPLS. So if I didn't want to have to deal with that again and again, and they kept referring to FPLS, I would come over to this side and I would put it in my untranslates. And the next time they said FPLS in the recording, I would just say Tran 3, and up it would come. And so that is a very convenient thing. I'm going to go ahead and go to the bottom of this dictation screen. And I'm going to turn on the mic and I'm going to say Tran 1, Tran 2, and Tran 3. Tran 1, Tran 1, Tran 1, Tran 1, Tran 2, Tran 2, Tran 3. So as you can see, it came out right, but only the second or third time I said it. So if that's the case, you would want to correct that, and I'll show you how. Okay, so because I said Tran 1, this should look like this. Asterisk, untran, 1, asterisk. I'm going to hit page down.
Tran 1. Tran 2.
You can hear that there's a buzz in my mask, and that's why it's not understanding me.
Trend 2. Trend 3. Trend 3. Trend 3. Trend 3. Trend 3.
Okay, so because I can hear this buzz, I'm going to go ahead and toggle these corrections off. Okay, and now I want to show you something really interesting. And this works for all markers. Once I've done correction on them, if I go to reformat and I click fix corrected markers, it actually goes ahead and inserts what it should have inserted in the first place, as you can see. And that's true for if you go ahead and do, let's say you say QCO, and it doesn't come out QCO. It comes out cute goat. Well, you would want to change that to asterisk Q asterisk, because that is the written form of your QCO. I will send you all a cheat sheet for your markers to remind you how to correct markers correctly. So that covers editing, and we've covered correction mechanism and utterance summary. We've covered pushing corrections through to the engine. Okay, let's talk about your vocabulary, your Dragon vocabulary. So I'm going to go back into my Dragon vocabulary, which is this little icon with the person and the bubble and the pencil. And that will bring up my Dragon vocabulary. And you can click on the drop down next to display, and you see many different ways to display things in your vocabulary. If you want to look at just the words you've added, you select on custom words only. And if you go into your custom words only, what you want to do is be sure that there's not anything in your custom vocabulary that is not something that you want there. You may find words that are incorrect that you have added. Like here's a great example right here. This is the word Peugeot, which you probably know is a vehicle. And there's a W behind the word, which makes it incorrect. And so what I want to do is delete that, because I have somehow accidentally added this word and I do not want it in my vocabulary because it's not right. So I'm going to highlight it and I'm going to click on delete, and I'll say yes to deleting it. And so that's good. Seeing is spelled wrong, so I'm going to delete that. Anytime you see something that is incorrect, not there on purpose, not something you added on purpose, then you want to delete it, because that is going to eventually come out in your spoken dictation if it's in your dictionary. So you want to be sure not to have any misspelled words in there. And that just means going and checking it every once in a while, looking at your custom words. Now, people have asked me, can I delete words that I don't think I'll ever use? Yes, you certainly can. And all of you at this point should have deleted your Dragon commands. So if you go to display, and next to display you select deleted words only, you should see some of these Dragon commands that are counterproductive for us, like cap next, unbreakable space, no break space, caps on, all caps on, no caps on. These will all cause you problems as you're dictating, so we remove them. If you want to ever add any of this back in, the only way to add it is to come and pick it from this list and say, okay, well, I want to add the word switch back in. So I'm going to add it. And the spoken form is just SWITCH. It's the same thing. I do not want to train it. So I'm going to click on add. So it's saying the spoken form you have entered is identical to the written form. This is unnecessary, and the contents of the spoken form will be ignored. That's because I'm not going to say it in a unique way. I just want it to come up the way it's written, the word switch. You only put a spoken form in if it is different from the way the word is produced or pronounced, pardon me, normally. So I'm going to close, and now that I have made changes to my vocabulary, I have got to save my speech files. If I do not save my speech files after doing anything in my Dragon vocabulary, whatever I did will be erased when I close this document. So remember that you want to save your speech files when you make changes to your Dragon vocabulary. One other thing that I want to talk about, I need to go back to the Dragon vocabulary for this, is I want to remind you all that we have added keek and cack to your vocabulary a little differently than your QCOs and ACOs, and we've added that for one purpose and one purpose only, and that is for your real-time coach dictations. So we don't have an asterisk A asterisk next to CAC, and we don't have an asterisk Q asterisk in the written form of keek. We don't have them because we don't want to use the SpeechCAD markers in real-time coach because real-time coach doesn't like them. So we add them this way. And you would also, if you were doing speakers, you would also have to add your speakers this way. So let's say that you have a speaker called Mr. Jones. You would say want to add Mr. Jones, and you would click on, because that's the way it needs to look in your transcript, and probably have to have a colon, and you would click on add and okay, and see it's saying you should put a spoken form. So I just want to really say Mr. Jones. So that's what I'm going to put in the spoken form. I'm not going to say Mr. Jones colon. I'm also not going to say all caps Mr. Jones colon. So I want to just tell SpeechCAD, I'm sorry. I want to tell Dragon that I'm just going to say Mr. Jones, but I want it to appear like this. And normally you would have to train them. So I'd click on add. Oh, Mr. Jones contains an invalid character, which is most likely the period. So I'm going to delete the period and just leave Mr. Jones. And I'm going to train it as Mr. Jones. Mr. Jones. Mr. Jones. Mr. Jones. And then I'll hit save. And now I have that speaker in my vocabulary. Ah, there it is, Mr. Jones. And so that's how you would add a speaker for your real-time coach. And you can go in and delete it after you have done that job because you don't need it forever. But this is just specific to real-time coach. when you're doing dictations for the court, you know, when you're actually doing real dictations, you will use your QCO and your ACO so that it comes out in the proper format. And that format is not one that Real-Time Coach likes, which is why we choose the Real-Time Coach style instead of one of the Trinidad styles. So now I'm going to close, and because I made a change, I'm going to save my speech files. And I'll click on yes. And so there we go. We've done correction mechanism, and we have done some adding to our vocabulary, and we've saved those changes that we've made. And so now we're done. We can go back to editing. I'm going to close out of here, and I'm going to show you how you will be acquiring audio files when you are actually doing work for the court. So here we are at the Transcriptionist main menu. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new job, and in the new job screen, I'm going to type in using an acquired audio file. And what I'm going to do is click on acquire. And I'm going to go to the place on my computer where I have some audio files saved. And I'm going to go grab one of those files and click on open. And it comes back and says, I've acquired this Q&A 180-1.wma. So I'm going to say okay. And now I'm going to click on dictate. I'm going to load the speech engine and click on OK. And so now when I go into Transcriptionist, it's going to look a little different than what you've been seeing, because now on this left-hand side, you've actually got an audio panel. And that audio panel will show you how many audio files you have acquired. I have only acquired the one. And so I want to make sure that my volume is all the way to the right. Sometimes your screen can be configured kind of oddly like this. You have these light blue bars, and if you click on a light blue bar and then click on your mouse, you can actually move any of these screens. You can show less speakers if you'd like and more on translates. And then what you're going to do is you're going to listen. I'm going to just hit play.
This is Court Reporting at Home Cell Training Program, Q&A test number 1 at 180 words per minute.
And then what you're going to do is you're going to listen. And if you have access to a foot pedal, you can actually control the audio with a foot pedal. These are standard foot pedals, USB foot pedals that you can get from transcriptiongear.com or just about any transcription site. And we have a foot pedal setup up here. And when you bring up the foot pedal setup, you need to make sure that it's the USB foot pedal that you're using, which I believe is HDPT2. And just make sure that's correct. Okay, so the pedal 1 is the left pedal. pedal 2 is the right pedal, and pedal 3 is the center pedal, the big pedal. And so on the left, my preference when I push down is to rewind. And so I go to step back. And then when I lift my foot off the pedal, I can either have it automatically play or wait, or I can have it do nothing. My right pedal, when I push down on it, I normally want to step forward, which is fast forward. And then when I lift my foot off of it, I don't want it to do anything, but you can also set that to play. I set my center pedal, my big pedal, on down to play. Oops. And on up to pause with back step. And I'm going to apply and okay. And now it says the foot pedal is on. So now if I push down,
ready?
There we go. If I put my left pedal, it backs up. You can see it going back over here, because on the left, you're seeing where your playback currently is. And on the right, you're seeing the total time of the file. You can also move the slider all the way back to the beginning if you like. There.
This is court reporting at home. This is court reporting at home self-training program, Q&A test number 1 at 180 words per minute.
And when I stop, it just stops right ever where I left it off. And then I can literally pick up my mask, listen to the audio, and redictate. And so that's what I'm going to want you guys to start doing this week is I want you to start working on acquiring audio. I want you to do one acquired audio file dictation before we meet again next week. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put an audio file up on the site for you on ACE. I'm going to pop over right now to ACE. And go to Transcriptionist. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some audio up here at the top for download. I'll do that after class today so that there'll be some for you to download so that you can work with that audio, acquiring the audio file and dictating with that audio that you've acquired. And for that, you can use any of your transcriptionist styles so that the format is actually correct for you. And I'll make sure that the instructions on downloading and acquiring are there for you. I might just go ahead and put it later on when we talk about acquiring the files. Let's see. Okay, that's Miss Diane's audio. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and add it. I'm going to add it here, dictating. I'm going to add it in lesson number 4. And it'll be, here, resource, download additional audio for practice. Might already be there. So there's one practice audio at 1:30. So I'll let you use this audio. That is the resource 4.5 in the Transcriptionist application. please make a note of that. And I will add more audio there for those of you who want to practice a little more at downloading audio and acquiring it. So I'll add a little bit more there for you. So that is everything that I wanted to speak to you about today. So now I am going to unmute you all so that I can answer any questions. Okay. Okay, Diana has a question. I can just get it. Okay. How best to achieve smaller groupings of utterances? I try to just say a few words, but my utterances are unusually long words strung together for easier correction. That is a very, very nice idea. A very good question. Okay. The way to get smaller utterances is very simply to do more correction. When you do correction at the speed that you are currently dictating at, you are going to improve Dragon's ability to understand what it is that you are saying. And so I strongly recommend that you do more correction. You saw that my utterances were very, very small, and that's because I do correction regularly. And it's a very important thing to do. And I hope that this week you will all do correction. I am still going through your achievements this past week. I will be sending you all emails as to your progress and what some of you need to go back and redo some or all of the exams in Dragon because your score is far too low to be acceptable. I can tell you that at least 3 of you have a score of 8 to 10, and that is not acceptable. And so I want you guys to redo that part of Dragon, those of you who have low scores there. I'm going to show you one last thing, and then I will let you go for today if you have no questions. When you are in the Transcriptionist application, and let me make sure I'm sharing this proper screen here. Okay, so I am, yes. Okay, so you should all see my Transcriptionist screen. So if you click on your name in the upper right-hand corner when you're in ACE, regardless of whether you're in Transcriptionist or just at the home screen, if you click on your name, you can click on grades, and it will actually come up and show you what grades you have in the courses that you are in. It will also show you your ranking in the group of people that have taken that course. So for those of you who have not gotten relatively high grades, you need to go back and redo the examinations. You can do them as many times as you like to get a better grade. A grade of I would say 28 is the least, the smallest grade that I would accept in any given course. But in the email that I send you, I will let you know what I think you must go back to. and suggest that you go back to it. And I'll also let you know how I think you're doing in your ACE dictations. So I'll let you know that in the private email as well. Some of you are doing a great job. Some of you are a little behind. A little behind is fine. A lot behind is not. So I'll let you know if you're a lot behind, so that you can do some focused work to catch up. So that is what I hope you'll be focusing on. Please do continue to let me know if you have any questions or concerns, and I'd be happy to answer your questions or concerns. So I'm ready for any questions if anyone has one.
Adria, I posted something in the chat. I don't know if you saw it come up.
You posted something where?
I sent something in the chat.
Oh, in a chat. Okay. Okay, the link on, what is that? Let's see. It says activity update. Oh, the link. So this link maybe, or this link is not working. Do you know which one is not working, Kizzy?
It's the first one. It goes to 4 page. Page
Okay.
not found.
Okay. This first one. Very good. So this is activity 2. Thank you very much. I will correct that link the minute we're done with the class today. Can you go over how to take my actual speech files from my computer profile and save it to a new user profile? Okay. Okay. So the question is, how do I take my user profile from one user and bring it to another? What you do if you want to create a new profile from an older profile, we will go over that. Let's see. So I'm going to open Dragon Naturally Speaking, and I'm going to open the user profile that I want to save. So I'll just open that. It doesn't have to be open to save it, but I just opened my most common one to wait for the profile to load. And then I'll click on Profile, Manage User Profiles. So let's say that I wanted to create another user from my mask user, maybe one that has less information in the vocabulary editor. So I'm going to make sure that first I've exported the user profile as we did earlier. So I would click on the user, click on Advanced and Export it to the folder I created earlier called DNS User Exports. And it's going to say, you already have one like that there. Do you want to override it? I'm going to say yes, because it's the same user. But I've done things to that user to make it different. So I do want to export it again. I'm going to say okay. And now I'm going to go Advanced, Import. And I'm going to go back to the DNS User Exports folder. And I'm going to select my mask user and okay. And it's going to say, well, you've already got one. Do you want to override it or import it with a different name? And I'm going to import it with a different name. And I'm going to call it Mask to SB Play 3, which is the USB audio device I use with this. And I'm going to click on OK. And now I've got an identical user, but now with a new name. So now I'm going to close this, and I'm going to go to Profile, Open User Profile, and I'm going to open my new user. I'm going to let it load the user profile, and then I'm going to go to vocabulary, open vocabulary editor, and I'm going to go to display, custom words only, and I'm going to take out a lot of stuff that I do not currently use by highlighting it and clicking on delete, and yes, I'm going to remove the fancy stuff that I don't use in my everyday work. And if I want to delete multiple things, I can click on the first one and then hold down the control key as I click on others. Just getting rid of some stuff that I don't use all the time. Okay, so the comment that was made was, I wanted to transfer my speech files to that new user, and that is how you would do it. You're just basically going to create a duplicate of your user, and then once you've done that, you need to do one more thing. So hang on just a minute. I finished this, and so now I am going to close my vocabulary editor, and I'm going to go to profile and save the user profile because I've made changes. Now, let's say that you have done this exact same thing and you now want to try a new headset with your headset user or a new mask with your mask user. You would go into profile, manage dictation sources, and you would say, okay, so what is my USB audio device that I'm going to use with this headset? And if you're not using a USB audio device, then you would use the sound card of the computer if that's where you're plugging in. And if it doesn't show here, then you would click on Add New Dictation Source, and it would come up and show you your dictation sources. And you would click on the Realtek or whatever your sound card is, and then you could click on Next, and it's going to prepare your user profile using that dictation source. So that's what you need to do in order to make sure that it's ready to use your new headset. Is you'll need to click, when you click on Add New Dictation Source, you'll need to click on that headset, the name of that headset. And remember, the way to find what the name of that headset is according to Windows is to right click on that little speaker in the lower right hand corner of your screen and click on Sounds, and then click on Recording and see what is the name of that headset, and that's the one you want to set as your dictation device. And once you've set your dictation device, now I need to go and set it back so I can show you the next step. Once you select the proper dictation device, you want to go and do check microphone, which is listed under audio. So you'll click on audio and you'll click on check microphone, and it'll come up and give you the opportunity to read this text with that device. And I'm going to do that right now. When I'm done, I click on finish. I do profile, save user profile, and I'm ready to go. That was a great question. Thank you. Anyone else have a question? Any question is a good one.
Adria, can you use the untranslates in the real-time coach for some of the more specialized terms, or is it better to use the drag and pad and train them before doing the video?
I think you can use the untranslates. I think that it will allow you to use it, but I tell you what, I will do an experiment with that. Real-time coach, let me make a note, real-time coach using, and I will let you guys know via the Skype chat how it works for me. But I think that the untranslates we can use because it doesn't put any spaces, it doesn't put a tab in there or a new line or anything like that. And that's the thing that the tabs that Real-Time Coach has a problem with normally. So my answer to you is yes, you can. Okay, and another very, very good question. Can you go back and redo some of the tests in the ACE courses? Right now, an error message is coming up. Okay, you are supposed to be able to redo all of the tests. So if the error is the error coming up for all of, no matter what exam you try to retake, or a specific one? Okay, thank you. So far you've checked 2 and it's the same thing. Thank you very much for that. I will go in and make sure, because you're supposed to be able to redo all of them, any of them and all of them, to better your grade. So I'm going to go and make sure that that is the case, because that's how it's supposed to be. So something must have changed. So I'll retake exams. I will also let you know via our Skype chat once I've made sure that you can go back and redo your exam. Anything else? You're welcome. I think you're all doing amazing work. I have dialed into several people to help them with a little bit of correction mechanism, and I've listened to the audio I've listened to some of your audio, and so far the people whose audio I've listened to are doing a fantastic job. So I appreciate that. I'm proud of the work that you're doing, and I am really proud of the fact that you do ask questions and let me know when you have issues. I really appreciate that. That helps me to help you so much more. So I encourage you to please continue doing that. And I thank you for your kind attention and wish you a very good day. And if I don't hear from you before, I'll definitely hear from you all next week. Have a good one. Bye now.